Whitefish. And on Friday, we had an incident of someone who left a white supremacist flyer in our front window. Taken on its own, right? Okay, whatever, lone idiot, who cares? But this is part of a larger pattern of behavior. And it's not confirmation bias to say that this initially began in late 2016 and escalated from there. They continued to leave pamphlets. In January of 2017, we put a sign on the front door. If you've been to Bookworks recently, it's actually pretty funny. It talks about spineless, gutless wieners. But it did not stop them. They kept going and going until they eventually tore the pages out of the middle of Anne Frank's diary. So that was not great, obviously, as a business. We, after that, kept Anne Frank's diary behind the register. And then they would leave pamphlets. Obviously, it was white supremacy stuff, but there was some particularly alarming things. Like, we actually went on the website and it talked about like teenage girls should get married to old men. So these things are loathsome in a number of ways. So we did report at the time to police, who were responsive at first, but after a while it just kept going and going, and there wasn't a lot that they could do. So what I am asking of the council is, in light of this, I mean, we're facing a horrible moment nationally right now. I mean, there's a lot of hate speech, there's a lot of hateful rhetoric happening, and people feel emboldened by that. I mean, we saw it in 2016. So it would be a big statement from all of you to issue some sort of public statement in opposition to hateful speech, hateful rhetoric, hateful behaviors. I'm also curious, you know, do we have any legal recourse here? Once we put the sign up, a lot of other business owners came forward to us and said, oh, hey, that's happening in my shop too. So even just getting that out there and really publicly known that, hey, here's what you can do to stand in opposition to this. Yeah, I think those are my points here, but just making you all aware and also wanting that to be on the public record, because I hope it doesn't go the direction that it went last time. We all saw locally what happened, right, with the horrible hazing of Tanya Gersh and the proposed white supremacy march. So let's stand up now and not let it get to that level. So that's all.
Good. Thank you, and thank you for continuing to bring this to our attention. I have to say that of all the municipalities that I'm aware of, Billings being another one that was a leader in this, nobody's looking away. Our police is not. Know that we will be here for you and for every business and every member of our community. So again, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention and keeping our eye on the ball. Thank you. Any other public comment? Any online, Michelle? Nope. Not seeing any further. Are there any volunteer board reports? Any volunteer board reports from the council? Not seeing any. All right, let's move on to our consent agenda for the evening. I entertain a motion. Giuseppe?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Cornell. Any further discussion?
Yes, I'd like to formally congratulate Officer Kolch for the 12 months of tenure and the confirmation into full job.
Thanks, Giuseppe. All those in favor? All those opposed, like sign. That matter passes unanimously. Next, we have no public hearings, and next we have communications from Parks and Rec, and I think that's going to be our resolution 2504. Is that correct? Yep. Maria.
Good evening. My staff report is in your packet. On January 15th of 2014, the city entered into a lease agreement with BNSF for the property now called Roundhouse Landing for the use as a public park. And as you all know, the park has provided valuable recreation river access for the community ever since. In 2024, BNSF acquired an additional property It is separated from Roundhouse Landing by a private property to the west. This additional property was formerly owned by the Kusamoto family. Once BNSF acquired the property, they sought to enter into a lease agreement with the city to manage the property as a public river access point, quote, for the sole and exclusive purpose of a picnic area and landing for canoes and kayaks. BNSF proposed to amend the existing Roundhouse Landing lease to include the former Kusamoto property, and the amendment requires the city to manage and maintain the property's public river access site to be known and referred to as Ted Kusamoto Park, and to establish and maintain a sign, placard, or bench in the park reading Ted Kusamoto Park. Prior to BNSF's purchase of the property, the Kusamoto family owned the land for more than a century. The naming of the park recognizes Ted Kusamoto, who is the eldest son of the original Kusamoto family who homesteaded on the land, and it honors his achievements in Silver Star Medal earned in World War II. The lease amendment holds a 25-year term. As such, in accordance with Whitefish City Code and state law, final approval of a lease longer than 5 years needs to be approved by the City Council. On January 14th, 2025, the Park Board unanimously recommended that the Council authorize the City Manager to execute the amendment to the original lease. The financial considerations for this are limited to the purchase of a bench and plaque, as well as just regular ongoing maintenance of the property, all of which can be managed within the existing parks operating fund. There is no cost for annual rent. So I can answer any questions, but I do respectfully recommend, along with the Whitefish Board of Park Commissioners, that the council adopt this resolution approving an amendment to the definite lease agreement number BF71038 for Roundhouse Landing to include an additional property, Ted Kusamoto Park.
Any questions for Maria on her?
Quick question.
Steve?
Maria, I'm a little confused about what it is we're actually taking over here. Is it the part in the diagram that doesn't have the hash marks where that old house was or is still?
It is west of where the house is.
Okay.
It is the property to the west of that. So where the house stands is the Walker property, and that's the private property that separates this Ted Kusamoto Park from Roundhouse Landing.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Maria? It's not a public hearing. I would entertain a motion from,
Giuseppe, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 25, help me here, what is it,
04.
2504, as presented by the staff and recommended by by the Park Board.
Seconded by Councilor Davis. Any further discussion on the matter?
Just a comment that if I heard clear, Maria, there is no increase in the lease from BNSF.
That is correct.
So I'd like to commend that.
Great, I think we all do. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? All those opposed, like sign, and the matter passes unanimously. Next up, we have communications from our city manager.
Great. My staff report, or my manager's report, excuse me, is on page 39 of your packet. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them. I'll give a brief legislative update, and thank you, Richard. We are following both those bills. We did submit comments in opposition for Senate Bill 146 and House Bill 378. We do plan to provide supportive testimony. The mayor was going to, but he was thinking that hearing would be this week. It has yet to be scheduled for a hearing or submitted to committee. It was first read on the floor today. So we'll be tracking that carefully along with many other bills. There is one on Wednesday. Oh man, this is where it starts to get confusing. I've got so many bills I'm tracking. Senate bill, I believe. Senate Bill 204. We actually are excited that the firefighter union is sending somebody over there and are willing to also help with our comments to speak in opposition to that bill at the hearing on Wednesday. That bill would require our 24 mil voted levy for the fire department to go 24/7, to go back through voter reapproval, because it's a permanent mill levy, and then it would limit it to 10-year duration. for the future. So you'd have to go back every 10 years to ask for voter approval. My opinion is that that was voted on by the voters of this community as a permanent funding source to move to a 24-hour service. And so we've drafted a letter. I will be in interviews for our deputy fire chief position that day, so we'll not be able to provide remote testimony, but we will have a letter, and our lobbyists will be working also in the background. So, yes, question?
Just a random question. I find this ridiculous. Does this include communities that are compelled by state law to have 24/7 fire service? We're on that cusp, and we're very close. And when we went to this, we thought we were even closer. But how could they ask us to I mean, that makes no sense.
Shaking your head like I am. The
Okay, good.
session's been
Okay.
that. I mean, it's just been that. Yes, so this would affect any voted levy any city has.
Every
county,
voted levy,
any voted levy. And so
Okay.
with that, it's not just us, it's going to affect a lot of communities. So I imagine there'll be a large turnout for that. There's other bills that are going to require voted levies or bonds to be at a higher voter approval rate. They will require a certain amount of voters to turn out, and then based on that voter turnout, what the percentage passing, or what the percentage of positive votes have to be to pass that. And so these are all from Senator Hertz down in Polson, and so he's been a challenge when it comes to anything property tax related. And so we're continuing to watch bills. He has another bill on our property tax levies, the 1510-420 that our regular mills are under, where there would be a limitation for us to basically stick with this last year's budget, and then all we get is full inflation moving forward. We'd lose our 30 plus carryover mills. And so there's a lot. When you guys come to me and say, what do we have for money right now? I don't know. I can't tell you. This is very clearly, the legislature is very concerned about property taxes, and I have tried to reiterate over and over again that cities make up around 20% of your tax bill. We are not the problem here. And in Whitefish, we have many of our residents are actually paying less in property tax today than they were in 2019, based on what we've been able to accomplish over the past 5 years. So, but that said, even if we come out and say that, they aren't necessarily supportive of that. There is one bill, Senator Fern, Senator Fern's carrying for resort tax, and that would be he's carried this last year, increase who could be a resort tax community to include both third and second class cities, so up to a population of 10,000. That would be really neat. I think it might struggle to get through, but at the same time, I think they're seeing some benefit from resort tax going to help offset property taxes. And in that bill, it would also allow the city of Whitefish to utilize the additional 1% for housing specifically, or infrastructure, because that's what it was really set out for in 2023. And so we're watching that bill. We did submit comments in support of that bill as well. Not that we'd have to, but it's a good funding mechanism and tool for future councils and future of the city. There are many bills that we're tracking. Not all of them are we taking a position. Some of them we are just monitoring. But there's bills ranging from, when city councilors would be elected, to changing that to odd years, to changing the way we can charge for records requests. They have information on the county's clerk and recorder fees that would be substantially higher for us, and among other things. So if you have specific questions on bills that I've included with the packet, please let me know. It is changing. I think today we have 260 Senate bills are in draft form and assigned a bill number, and then 381 House bills. But there are 4,357 bill drafts that have been requested, many of which have been put on hold, but we're going to continue to see them come forward until the deadline for introduction has passed. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have, though.
Any questions for Dana? Dana, I'd just like to comment on something. When the mayor is missing or can't be here, you need to know that you need to reach out to any or all of us, whether he's here or not, to the extent you want more warm bodies, to comment. I mean, we don't have the weight of the mayor, obviously, but I think it would be, know that you can, and I'm sure that every member of this council will make it happen. So, thank you.
I appreciate that.
All right. Let's see. Next up on our agenda is communication. Yes. Next up on our is consideration to reappoint Director Workman to the Flathead County Solid Waste Board for a 3-year term.
I so move.
All those in favor? You're stuck.
You didn't read the entirety of the
I did.
agenda item.
I
We
did. Sorry.
read it, Craig.
I
We
saw
read
it. I saw it.
Right.
Yeah. I thought, never mind. We have a letter from Mallory Phillips recommending the city council increase or create a youth advisory council. Any comments?
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve.
At the end of our last meeting, Dana, I asked you to put some of those items on for our council retreat, the things that came up during that work session with the CDB. So if you could add this one to that list, that would be, I think this is something that's probably a retreat item that we want to talk about rather than take action on right now. But unless other people have a different opinion of that.
Andy?
Yeah, I agree with Steve. This is not a new idea. It's something that we've tried a couple of times in the last several decades. And generally, I think, and nothing against the school district, but we have to have good, solid support and a teacher that's willing to do it year after year after year from the school, because it's not something we have the time to go out and make happen. And I don't know where the disconnect has been, but we get a lot of traction and then it kind of fades away. So I would encourage us to look at it, but I think we need to really come up with a system that will allow it to sustain. Because kids graduate and then you get a class that doesn't have anybody that's interested, and then it dies. And so it's how we can make the thing sustain itself, I think, is the big question, quite frankly. So not that the idea is not a perfect one, it's just we got to figure out how to make it work. So.
And by the way, we have committees where it's allowed to have a youth representative. And case in point, at the pedestrian bike committee, we have had a youth since three years ago, and that person graduated, and proactively we worked with the school and found a replacement for that person that went away. So that's one in one committee. We'll need to figure out if we pursue that. A full council of 4 or 5 youngsters might be a little challenging, but we can talk. I like your idea, Steve. We can talk during a retreat.
I would concur with those comments. I think Andy's also right. I mean, I've been around here long enough to see this come and go. What's made it work for the community planning or development board is a teacher has taken it on as a project for his class, and so it's become pretty effective. And I think we'd have to have buy-in or essentially a request from the school that they would like to have that as an opportunity for their students, and somebody was going to take it on. But I think it's a great idea. I think we can put it on the agenda, and if somebody wants to pass on a note to the school system to say, if you're interested in this, tell us what you want. Give us a proposal. Because I think that would be the way it would have to work. That said, any other comments on that? Next item is a letter from Mr. Thomas concerning the handling of emergencies. Any comments? All I would ask is Mr. Thomas. Mr. Major Milfeld. Yes, I was going to ask him to do his spell check and might be a little more responsive. And his request really is about the county. City cannot control what goes on in the areas outside the city. We don't own, it's a county road, West Lake Shore. We can't manage that. We're not allowed to. And quite frankly, we're not allowed to say anything about development out in that area. So I think his concern we share. Obviously, that in an emergency situation, that's something we're as concerned with as anybody. We can't do anything about it. So anything he can do to help us with the county, bring that to attention and begin to ask them to help us, we'd be up for that. So, yeah.
It might be comforting for him to hear from you guys about what we have planned in terms of wildfire, stopping wildfires in that area, because we are actively working on all of that. Dana or Cole, do you want to?
I would say that, the work session we have in March, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cole, but we'll be holding a work session in March that discusses like emergency preparedness with the fire department and what efforts DNRC has been doing for mitigation. Obviously, we've been discussing fire response with certain members up at the north end of the lake as well, their future North Lake Fire District potential. But we are obviously going to have that work session, which I think will provide a lot of information. We have requested the presence of the county to also attend, because any evacuations would be managed by the Flathead County Sheriff's Department. So we'll see if they're able to attend as well. But we're trying to have a work session where we can all be in one room.
That's great. And then I just want to mention the Wisconsin Avenue Corridor Plan calls for a satellite fire, not a full fire unit, I forget what you call it, but a place where we have a fire engine and a fireman or firewoman. What would that be called?
It'd be like, it would be a secondary station
Sorry.
and like a police substation.
Okay, secondary fire station, yeah. And we almost, we had that in the plans for the Mountain Gateway. That was, a developer had offered that to us, but that development didn't pass through. And then Big Mountain also has their own fire station and staffing. But I didn't want to blow them off and make it seem like we're not addressing the risk out there. But it is in the county, but we are actively planning for that. Thank you.
And the county recognizes the challenges they have, not just going, along the lake shore, but even up Big Mountain, that there is one ingress, egress.
Yeah, I also want to add, if Mr. Thomas would like to come to the planning board or the CDB meeting where we discuss hazards, that's going to be a big part of what we're going to add into the new growth policy. So, and I know that Richard's helping out with writing a fire plan, sort of. He's involved in it, I should say. I don't know how much he's helping, but anyway, that's part of what we're going to be doing with the new growth policy.
Great. Next, start with councilor comments. We'll start with Giuseppe. Nothing this evening? Steve? Ben?
Just one thing, Angie, not to put you on the spot, but there was a question brought up earlier if there's any legal recourse for the hate letters distributed in town. Do you have any comments on that?
We don't really have legal recourse for that. You folks have done resolutions in the past, and I really appreciate your comments, by the way, and you are a good public speaker, so don't discount that. You folks have done some resolutions and mayoral proclamations in the past. If you guys were so inclined to write one in light of people being very emboldened, I'd certainly be willing to take that on for you.
Is there appetite on this council for that? Andy, yes? No? Yes. Giuseppe?
I'd like to hear also the chief of police position on this. Sorry, because we have discussed multiple times about expression, where the expression ends and the crime starts. So I'd like to understand your position on this.
I guess the police department's position on this is that if you receive such flyers, those type of things, to immediately report it to the police department. The quicker that we can respond, look at the subject matter. A lot of times it's very obvious whether it's protected or not, depending on if there's threats or those type of things. But then it gives us the opportunity to do some investigation into who may have dropped it off. The longer you wait, the less information is available to obtain that, and you're kind of chasing a clock at that point in time, depending on if there's cameras in the area or witnesses to the event, those type of things. So as soon as you notice it, to call in the police department. We did send an officer over there today to talk with the management of the store and discuss the issue and see if there's anything that we can come up with, and we'll continue to investigate that. But this particular thing, I don't think there's anything in the flyer that was left that would be considered a crime. That's my recommendation for any business that receives anything that unwanted or concerning to them, is to call us so we can take a look at it. If we don't know, we'll consult with legal and get direction from them as well, whether it be the county attorney's office or the city attorney's office. We have a lot of resources to do that. And if it's something bigger, we have federal resources that we can push it up the ladder to have them look at. So we're happy to do so. We just need to know what's happening.
Giuseppe, thank you. I'm on a personal level. My feeling is that there's no reason that we should not, once again, given this kind of threat, reiterate this city and community's position that this is unwelcome. And in my personal view, if somebody is leaving something in your store, they are at the least throwing trash in your store, and that's not okay. And so I think that's a fair analysis on how we ought to approach this. But I would certainly entertain, and subject to the mayor's feelings on it, I would certainly entertain an appropriately worded statement from this council. Rebecca?
Yeah, would it be possible for the city to come up with a small sign that stores could put in their window to explain that it actually is against our, is it against the law? I guess that's what I'm asking.
To deposit a handbill. It's a very old law. Dana just pulled it up for me.
Okay. And also the repercussions of someone doing that, if we're never gonna do anything about it, or if there are legal means to stop them from doing it. Like legally, what rights do the owners of the stores have?
I mean, it is illegal, but I think Bridger was completely right. If you don't know who's doing it, we can't do anything about it. We can't really do much.
But what is the crime that they're committing?
It's called distributing a handbill.
Okay, so it's like a misdemeanor?
Yeah, it's a very old law.
And if someone distributes a handbill and it's caught on camera and we can prove who it is, then we can prosecute them?
We could, for a misdemeanor.
Yeah, so.
But again, I mean, the problem is catching them. You know, I definitely love the fact that you guys are discussing it, because sometimes public shaming is the best way of law enforcement. So.
I think these people are pretty sneaky. They're ripping out pages from books, and they're leaving pamphlets inserted into children's books. It's been going on for years now, and they're doing it despite what the owners have posted on the door, very blatantly, that they're not into it. And so on some level, it's a form of harassment. So I think we should have a stance about this, because why do the people that own businesses in town have to have this go on for years? You know, it's a form of intimidation almost.
Well, I believe we added at the public library as well, but this was quite some time ago. So.
Yeah. Is there any way we could have a little form made up from the city that says that it is illegal to leave things in a business or in a area, and that we will pursue criminal charges as needed?
I think we could put it in a statement from you folks. We could also post it on our website. I'm imagining Michelle.
I think putting it in a place where the public sees it, not only reminds the people that are doing this illegally, but it also reminds the public that we have standards of behavior that we expect from everybody that lives here and comes here. and that we will uphold them. So, all right. Do I need to ask you guys to do that, or do I need to get other people agreeing to do that?
May I? Sure. What you call standards of behavior are laws. Am I correct?
Correct.
So if that's where we're going, and I'm supportive of it, if we want to remind the public that there is a code, it's either state or federal, whatever, or city code, let's quote it. Let's say this is illegal, and per this code, and anybody who breaks it will be prosecuted accordingly, and make it nice frame and distribute, or have the businesses copy and print it. I have no problem with that.
I agree. Ben?
I would just point out one thing. Provided somebody can figure out who this is that's doing this, the business owners themselves can also ban them from their establishment, can they not?
Yeah.
Solution.
That's true. Anyway, I think we would all consider Angie a great favor and a community service if you draft a statement that once we review it with the mayor, we might issue. And give the option to any business that wants it to have it, and or if they would like some kind of a made-up form that they want for theirs. I quite frankly think the Books Work signs are effective and send the right message. But
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, great, thanks. Okay, Ben, anything else? Rebecca, anything else?
Yeah, today I had interesting communications with Dana about whether or not we, as a chartered city, have the right to question the federal government about their actions. Mostly I brought up the issues of the tariffs. They have been stayed for 30 days, but also the potential violations of our private information through the Treasury Department. So she did find a place in our code that is, I don't know, Dana, if you want to speak to that. Mostly I was concerned that we're not protecting our citizens by not speaking out about things that I think have endangered them. And I just wondered what the process was for that. So Dana, do you mind just mentioning?
Sure. Yeah, so our city code does dictate jurisdictional areas that council has. And one of them where this would apply, basically the city manager, any request comes to the city manager and they determine if it is within the council's jurisdiction to proceed. My recommendation can be superseded by a majority vote of the city council. And so under our code, it does state the city council shall avoid those jurisdictional areas which A, do not affect Whitefish citizens differently than citizens statewide or nationally, B, which do not have any observable impact on or relevance to the city itself, its services, utilities, infrastructure, properties, programs, or projects, or C, which other elected or appointed representatives are by their experience and or authority best positioned to consider and take action. So the tariff specifically, I felt that affecting Whitefish different than other cities and citizens probably applied, and then as well as there's other elected officials that actually have the authority and experience and are best positioned to take action, so Congress. And so my recommendation was to wait and just see what happens. One area that could be of importance is if the federal funding freeze affects our grants that we have. At that point, I think we would definitely want to provide comment and reach out to our elected officials at the federal level. At this point, though, each city council member is available to provide their own personal comments, but my recommendation was the city as a unit would not.
Thank you. I just wanted to know how it worked. We take care of our own jurisdiction, but we work within a system, and I just wanted to know how that works if we have to do anything else. So thank you.
Great, Rebecca. Thanks. Andy, anything this evening?
Just a couple of comments. Just want to comment about the amazing natural phenomena we had over the last roughly 10 days with the unbelievable sheet of ice on the lake, something that is literally, Bridger knows this, and Charlie Abel will even tell you this, he's never seen anything like that in his entire life, and we weren't getting snow, but it was a really amazing thing. With that, though, I also want to say is there was really great to see all the people out there using it, but the next couple days, we're probably going to see freezing all the way out to Houston Point would be my guess. And people are pretty comfortable being out on that ice sheet. And from Glenwood to Houston Point might not be super solid for at least a week. So people be careful. Just because it looks like it's frozen, it might not be all that hard. And then on a more personal note, I do want to say this for all of us in the world that own a super special breed of dog, it's National Golden Retriever Day. And for my two at home, I'm going to let them know that they get an extra kibble treat tonight. And the city of Golden, Colorado actually has National Golden Retriever Day, and they close the main street in Golden, Colorado every year. And there's literally thousands of Goldens there, and in every video you go see them, every one of them is pawing somebody, they're jumping up on somebody, they're rubbing their head underneath their hand to get petted. And so anyway, that's my two girls, Hazel and Fran, at home. So there you go.
Thank you, Andy. Anything else from staff this evening? All right, not seeing any. I have no comments this evening, other than we're going to close the regular council meeting and return to our work session to discuss further our ethics policy, and we'll probably be there for another half hour, 45 minutes, and then see where we go. Thank you.